As I was thinking of this evening's subject, the first thought that came was to speak of physical health somewhat. So I tried to look in the Bhagavad Gita, and I was quite amazed that very little is written, which is right, because I think health is spoken of, written about in many, many places, so many places. And as I was reflecting, so little is spoken about. Of course, we know there are verses on diet, on certain exercises, pranayams especially, but again, physical health, very little. But remember, the Gita is a condensation of the Upanishads, which were a condensation of the Vedas, and I'm sure much was written over there. And also, as Swamiji or Master gave, the explanation of the Gita, and Swami he asked, Master once told him actually, as most of us know that story, he said, your life is one of lecturing, writing and editing. And Swami was already so happy, full with the practices, the initiations he had received. He had been accepted as a disciple. He said, sir, but what would I write? Haven't you already written whatever there is to be spoken or written, shared? And he said, Master actually looked quite surprised. And he said, oh no, don't say that. That it was interesting that some people in their aspiration actually become munis. I've myself met a person, and I can say that now she was a disciple of Neem Karoli Baba. She was quite complete, content, even helpful by her presence. But that aspect is for a rare few people. Most of us, when we have a health challenge, and why was I thinking of health? Because I was in certain classes and workshops, and I was teaching a pranayam to very young people who had joined a certain corporate office, and I said, let's do the full yogic breath. Inhale, exhale. And I said, make it longer, slower, longer, slower. And after 3 days of training, this young batch of kids came and they said, sir, your teaching, your explanation, your points are also wonderful, except that my breath ends by the time I've reached the knees, because you start inhaling over here. And he showed me, he said, that's the limit of my breath. Then I said, no, show me again. And he showed me, and he said, it's kind of stuck over here or stuck over here. I can't breathe. Then I asked the others, and they were not able to breathe. And I was reminded in college that we had as part of, I'm a doctor. By the way, I want to invite and welcome Jagdish, who's traveling from Thailand, and Jayaji also. I was thinking one person came from the east, one from the west, that later I'll mention more about him, Jagdish, that I was reminded that we would have these tests to measure each other's blood pressure, breath holding capacity and all. So I wrote my breath holding capacity, and we were discussing, and I looked at the chart later, and people had written like 12 seconds, 15 seconds. And I spoke to them. I said, are you serious? And they said, yes. And I had written 183 seconds. And I got a cup of tea with the head of department, and she said, what do you do? How is it like this? Do you exercise? Do you swim? Do you do yoga? And yoga not yet at that time, but I would do these games of holding the breath, and you play football. But I looked at others in my classroom, and they were looking quite fine. And I said, what is it that you are not doing? How is it that it's 15 seconds and such? So anyway, remember, also after we may have taken Kriya initiation, I'll speak about a verse where the Kriya Pranayam is alluded to. A challenge we may face is physical health. Master said, be tough physically. He said, be very tough. And he said, keep the body ready for self-realization. And I have to say now, also playing the role of a doctor, a spiritual aspirant, counselor, that again, it's a rare soul who can ignore the physical tests and challenges because their mind is focusing on God. When the body calls for help, many are distracted. Also, in my own life in the last 1 month, many young friends and relatives are seeking counseling for health challenges. And I said, oh no, sometimes in our spiritual aspiration and following the spiritual laws, we can forget there are also physical laws in place, and we should not be, it should not be either or, as I think it's common knowledge, but we need reminders, like I was saying. And just a few days ago, we had gone to exercise so we said, okay, let's run and do timing, let's take some sit-ups, let's do some push-ups. Damodar did push-ups. And then people were like, oh, my arm, I can't move my arm. Somebody said after 2 days, my legs are not moving, I'm walking. And it was not too much. It was like 30 sit-ups, or in his case, it was 50 push-ups, which was very admirable. But 10 laps of a basketball court running at your own convenient speed, and people are like, and I said, yogis in the caste system, in terms of consciousness, you're not lazy, you're not a Shudra, you're not a Vaishya. You surpass Kshatriyas in consciousness, and maybe it's to some degree on health, and then we aspire with all that health and prana and energy. We say, now I am going to inwardly direct this inward and change myself, reform myself, burn my karma. So I just wanted, the doctor in me feels very bad whenever somebody falls ill. I said, oh, this could have been avoided. Just drink more water, sit in the sun, break the sweat. That's another teaching of Master. He would say, break the sweat, go and sweat. Many mental, emotional worries, problems, situations can be avoided. Also, since I'm in the flow, last week, somebody invited me home for a health consultation. I saw their consultation, it had 13 medicines on it. And I just had to take a deep breath. I was like, okay, we're going to have to work through this one by one, slowly. But I was with Dr. Amar. Many of you know, he's my physician friend and Guru Bhai over here. And later I said, so many of these can be avoided if people could just focus a little bit on the physical health. And this person is an internationally renowned personality. So you see, again, pranayam, which I'll now talk about, means not just controlling the inner energy. A good test is, how is it reflecting outwardly? Are you balanced in your health, in your emotions, in your thinking, in your problem solving? So let's do our pranayams well, but see also how we are outwardly expressing it. So then, when I didn't find physical health, I said, what should I share from the Gita now? And I found this beautiful verse, very beautiful verse. And like I say, the doctor in me likes to go back to basics sometimes. So this verse is really classic, basic. Everybody will relate to this. This is chapter 5, verse 27 and 28. The Muni, in brackets, one for whom liberation is the sole purpose of life, controls his senses, mind, and intellect, removing himself from contact with them by neutralizing the currents of prana and apana in the spine, which manifest outwardly as inhalation and exhalation in the nostrils. He fixes his gaze in the forehead at a point midway between the two eyebrows, in brackets, thereby converting the dual current of physical vision into the single omniscient spiritual eye. Such a one attains complete emancipation. That again, and it helps me a lot as a Kriyaban to once in a while meet totally fresh audiences, say in a corporate workshop. Just this afternoon, I got a very nice call from a friend. He said, I'm doing a research on 50 auto rickshaw drivers, how their spine feels, why do they have body pain, but they said, will a doctor come for this research? And he said, I thought of you first, will you come and talk to them, counsel them? And I said, oh, of course, absolutely, because sometimes, like Deviji recently was saying, she said, we have so much that we could forget about it or take it for granted. But again, in this verse, Krishna is saying, keep the gaze up. And I want to talk about those simple things. Now, problems. How many people are facing some challenge in their life right now? I wish I had multiple hands. Yeah, some opportunity comes. Why think of a problem? An opportunity comes, you have to step up for that opportunity. Your team needs to step up. You need to be perhaps the person who is speaking. You need to understand, is this good for us? Is this not? So many things come and we have to make a decision. And Yogananda ji would say that for all of those things we require energy. But again, where do we process those things? I was reading the Harvard Business Review 2015-16 last quarter edition, and it speaks of leaders operating from the front part of the brain. And I read those 8 articles and I said, if somebody told me, if you operate from the left hand and not the right, your chances of success or decision making would improve. That's easy to do. How do you operate from the front? I don't even know right now which part of the brain I'm operating from right now. At least when I was reading that, I said, how many people know what's going on in the brain anyways? But again, as we all are reading, perhaps in media and such, that people are doing research, we are finding out that the front part of the brain is where our personality is situated. When you do make a decision, and sometimes your decisions don't go well, and you say, oh, or sometimes you are in that zone for months together. Did I do the right decision? Did I not? Is it right? Is it not? Should I ask somebody? What do I think about it? Doubts come, anxiety comes, restlessness comes. And Yogananda ji would say that in the state of uplifted consciousness, he said, solutions are there all the time. All we have to do is lift our problem, keep it over there, and receive it. And recently, when I found myself beset with all these demands on my time, I said, how do I deal with this? And the thought was, like Swamiji once said he fell into a mood. And the mood was so convincing that he felt Master does not love him. People in the ashram don't love him. And on it went. And he said, he was wise enough to catch him. He said, I'm not right over here, I think. And he said, what should I do? He said, I think I need to change my consciousness. And he said, I focused at this point between the two eyebrows just for 5 minutes. And he said, I could see all the reasons why Master was not able to give him time. He said, Master is busy. He has other people to take care of. People are doing their work. And he said, that is so selfish of me to think that they are not giving time to me. He said, actually, I was self-preoccupied. And he then came out of the mood, and Master saw him a few days later. And he said, no more moods, Walter. Otherwise, how will you help others? Let's always keep that in mind. He said, because when a mood catches us, it's, again, our energy is low. And if you're trying to find a problem for ourselves, for others, again, a good decision, perhaps the will to exercise more, we need to keep that energy high. And Yogananda ji, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is saying that control that prana in the spine. Now, it also mentioned the yogi removes the attachment from the mind, from the intellect. These two are important for decision making, and from the feelings. The Master gave this classic statement. I think we talk so much about decision making. This line has brought me back to, you might say, to the baseline again and again. He said, reason follows feeling. That if your reason is not right, people don't love me, Master is not talking to me. He said, don't work over here, focus on the feelings. Because you see, the mind is already off track. The intellect is not thinking properly, it's already gone. But he said the root is in the feelings. So again, when I thought of, if I want to control my reactions, if I want to control my decision making, if I want to control my mind, my intelligence, my intellect, the Bhagavad Gita thousands of years ago, I was marveling that good people thousands of years ago also had the same challenges. It said, start with the breath. Control the inhalation and exhalation. Do we have techniques of that? Yes, observing the breath, triangular breathing, Kriya Pranayam, Hong Saw in the nose, Hong Saw in the spine. Somebody asked Swamiji, those who are new, one of our teachers can explain. He said, how do you do Hong Saw in the spine? It's a beautiful technique. He said, oh, it's just a wonderful enjoyment of the currents in the spine. What else do you have to focus on? He said, that is all absorbing in itself. So if there are such simple mechanisms in our body, and they are alluded to, we should be practicing them. And I would like to leave you with this thought. Somebody asked Swamiji a question. So many times, people would ask him a question, especially towards the end of his life. He would start many sessions and he would say, do you have any questions? Somebody said, sir, what do we do in such and such situation? And it was a very difficult situation this person was visualizing. It was life and death. How do you make a decision at that moment? And Swamiji actually, look at the beauty of a calm soul. He clarified that question. He said, what you're basically asking is, what should we do in any moment? What is God's will for us or for that situation in any given moment? And the person said, yes, what would God's will be in that moment? And Swami said, to know that, practice while it's easy. that when a critical situation has come before us, when it's life and death especially, or when you're in the traffic, when the feelings have gotten disturbed perhaps by habit and we are already in that whirlpool, it is hard to swim out of it, come out of that mood, make a right decision in the moment if we have not practiced. So again, but once we practice, what happens? Master was once preparing for a talk, and as he was going, there were some journalists, and somebody said, "Sir, can you give us a poem? Can you give us some inspiration right now?" And Master said, "Take it down." And he started dictating certain lines of inspiration, and the person noted it. And then Master said, "That's a very good poem." And he was about to publish Whispers from Eternity. He said, "Why not put this one also in that book?" It reminded me of Swamiji. He said he would get so many songs that at some point he stopped praying and collecting them, you might say. But inspiration is so much at will. And Master said, put it in the book. That book has hundreds of answered prayers. When that book went to the editor, I think it was maybe in London, he wrote a review about it, and then he said, there is one poem in this, one answer in prayer in this book, which I just cannot stop from sharing with all of you right now. And he picked up that one. And Swamiji would say that, look, Master, in the midst of everybody, he was able to keep his focus at the spiritual life. This is the seat where we receive inspiration, where we receive intuition, where if we hold our problems in meditation, we're not thinking about it. We are placing ourselves, like Swami did. He climbed that ladder to come out of his mood. So meditation, think of it as a ladder, that you're going to climb that ladder for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever you can offer. And once you're up, and then you think of the problem, you will see that the problem is small, our perspective has changed, perhaps our emotions have become so calm that we see the problem was actually, many times this happens, the problem was you. The problem started with you, and you are able to easily accept it, solve it, no guilt for yourself, of course no blame for others. And we rejoice. At that time, we are able to say, because I heard some years ago, Jyotishji was saying that one reaches a point ultimately where problem solving becomes a fun task. And I said, daily problem solving becomes a enjoyable task. And I said, yeah, that's what I would like to do. And I think that, by daily meditation, when you have joy, no problem seems too big. Thank you.